Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV. I have been on a side quest over the years to find the best wireless doorbell for my home because I don't have doorbell wiring outside and I wanted something without a subscription. And I have looked at every option there is except the Eufy doorbell here. And this is their sort of new E340. And this is a dual camera doorbell in that you have a camera up here that faces forward and another one here that faces the ground for tracking packages. And I am quite happy with this one. It's actually my favorite that I have looked at over the years here. And we're going to take a closer look at what this doorbell is all about in just a second. But I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, that I paid for this with my own funds. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own. No one is paying for this review, nor has anyone reviewed or approved what you're about to see before it was uploaded. So let's get into it now and see what this doorbell is all about. Now, the price point on this comes in at $179 for just the doorbell. There's also an add-on chime that you can get for $39 so you can hear somebody push the button inside of your home. But there are some alternatives to buying that chime, which I'll talk about as we work our way through the video here. Now, what I like best about this is that you get all of the features of the doorbell without having to pay a subscription. So the entry price gives you the product, and that is kind of unusual these days. The trade-off, though, is that by default, there is no cloud storage here. It's all stored inside of the doorbell. If you get the add-on chime, it will send the video from the doorbell to the chime inside the home and store it on an SD card that you have to put inside of that chime. Additionally, it works with Eufy's Hub product for their cameras to also store the footage on that server device inside of your home. But the video here will not leave the doorbell. But there are some cloud interactions that happen off-site, so just be aware of that. But by and large, this is a mostly off-the-grid product. There is 8 gigabytes of storage on the doorbell. That's plenty of storage for the size of the clips that it captures, so I think you should be able to have a good run with this thing without having to incur any additional cost. It does not come off the door easily. They have this little key here that you have to pop inside of this and pull the doorbell forward to get it off. So you can't just rip it off the door frame unless you are super, super strong. So it does have some protections there, but you might want to look at getting that chime to store the footage inside of your home or pay them for their cloud subscription, which is an optional cost, but again, doesn't reduce any features that you may otherwise have. Now, this has a 2K image sensor on this camera. And as I noted, there are 2 cameras here. And as you can see, it actually works pretty nicely. So you can see in front of the door with a nice wide angle here. So here is me walking up with a package, and I'll talk about package detection in a minute. And you can see how the lower camera is perfectly synced up. And the lower camera will pick up everything on the ground in front of it. Now you'll notice that my welcome mat is kind of off to the side there. That's because the doorbell is facing forward. But inside the box here, there is a little attachment to angle the doorbell differently if you need to. So you could use this little guy here to give you a little more angle and pick up maybe more of a centered view of your floor if you need it. Now, I just accidentally pushed the button here, but that leads me to my next point. As you can hear, the bell
at the front door too.
The bell is quite loud, but if you're inside your house, you may not hear it without the chime. An alternative, which you may have heard, is that if you have an Amazon Echo device like this, it will work as an indoor chime. So you may not need to buy that chime if you don't need these indoor storage. And so there are some ways without having to pay for additional hardware to get the chime functionality here. But again, you might want to do that if you don't have an Amazon Echo device to send it to. The instruction book kind of indicated that Google Home devices might do it. I have one of the older Nest Home displays in my kitchen, and it did not work with that insofar as delivering the doorbell chime, although the camera footage did show up on there. Now, you did see earlier a daytime view of the camera. It also has a couple of options for night vision. This first example here is the infrared night vision, and this will illuminate the people in front of the door with some infrared lights. And also it will turn on a regular light on the floor camera there, and you can see a little bit of a difference in how the exposure looked. Let me rewind it here a little bit. So you can see I'm pretty much in night vision mode there, and the lower portion is using the color night vision sensor on the camera there on the lower end. But you also can turn off the infrared mode and have it work with what they call the color night vision. Now, this is black and white, but it actually works pretty nicely. It will light up two lights, one on the bottom and one on the top, to illuminate the scene here. But both of these modes actually work pretty well, and it's a matter of your preference as to how you'd like it to work. By default, it's going to go with the infrared night vision on top and the color night vision on the bottom. So that's the basic functionality. There is a microphone on board, so when it does record something, it will record not only the video but also the audio. So have a listen to the microphone quality.
I am testing audio. This is a test of audio. Testing 1, 2, 3. Test, test, test.
So as you can hear, the microphone on it sounds quite nice. It also has a speaker on board, and what you can do is either talk to people through the speaker. It does it in a duplex fashion, so you don't have to treat it like a walkie-talkie. I'll show you that in the app in a second. But it also has some pre-baked responses that you can give as well. Have a listen to what the speaker sounds like.
Excuse me, can I help you? Please leave it at the door. Hey, you, get out of here.
So all in, pretty solid and pretty simple to operate. So what about battery life on this? Well, the battery life will depend on how often the camera gets triggered. So if you have a pretty low volume door, you'll probably get several months of battery life out of it before you have to recharge. If you have more activity or you have it set to not rest in between motion events, you're probably going to see battery life around a month or two, again, depending on conditions. And of course, in the winter, it may not do as well as it might in the summer when it's warmer out. Now, the battery is very easily swappable. So if you are finding yourself having to swap the battery out more frequently, you can get two batteries. You can charge one of them up and have the other one in the camera at all times. So you do have that option here because it is removable. Some of these other doorbells I've looked at, you have to basically take the whole doorbell down and charge the thing for several hours at a time. The batteries do take several hours to charge on their own, so plan accordingly based on how often you think you might need to swap. But again, several months is probably doable for most scenarios. You'll also notice here that it has connections for doorbell power. So if you do have power where your doorbell is, you can use that power to keep the battery topped off. The battery has to be installed because it will be using the battery to power the camera, but you can charge it very slowly off of that doorbell power there and likely never have to replace the battery at all. I would, though, check with Eufy's website just to know what the voltage requirements are for that feature. So that is it for the basic functionality here. Let me get this back out on my door. Oh, I hit the button again. Let me get this back out on my door, and we will see how it works with its app. All right, so we've got the doorbell back out on the door, and when you pop into the Eufy app, if you hit the play button, it will connect to your door no matter where you are in the world, and you're able to monitor things in real time. So this is the real-time view of what's going on outside my house at the moment. It's going to turn the volume down a bit on the microphone, and we can look at some of the basic features here. So if I do have somebody at the door, I can communicate with them just by pushing down the button here. And again, what's nice about this is that it's a two-way conversation. I don't have to wait for the person to stop talking before I push the button like a walkie-talkie. It is more natural. I can hang up there, of course. If I hit the reply here, that will deliver the pre-baked responses that we have available to us. So there are three that it comes with, like please leave it at the door. So if you're anxious about talking to people, you can just hit the button here and have the Eufy deliver that for you. And you can see it gives you a confirmation when it says it. You're also able to make your own. So I've got one here that says get out of here. So you can use that one too if you want. You also have the ability to take still frames of what's going on, and you can also record in real time here. So if I hit the record button, what it will start doing is taking this video and dumping it into my photo library. And I should add the functionality of this app is very similar on Android as well. So what you're seeing should be working the same across both platforms. Now you can also zoom in on the cameras a little bit because you do have some resolution to play with here. So you can do the standard pinch to zoom here if you want. But you also have the option here to have each camera appear kind of full screen. So if I flip this around like so, you can see a much larger image of both cameras. So here we've got the front-facing camera, and then embedded down here is a little view of the door. But if I tap on this here, most of the time, it sometimes takes a couple of taps, it will swap the image around so you can get a better look at a package that might be at your door. Now, it also has some rudimentary on-device AI. I found it is very, very good at detecting people. So anytime a person walks in front of the camera, I have it set to send me a notification. but if a bird or an animal or something walks in front, it doesn't. So it's been really good at that. The package delivery does work for the most part, but it's very specific. So when you load up your camera here, you get a running tally of what it's seen delivered to the door or how many people have rung the doorbell. Unfortunately, this visitor's number doesn't count just regular motion events, only when somebody pushes the button. But delivered, whenever it thinks it sees a package getting dropped in the second camera, it will log those events. So if we click on here, you can see that it detected a box getting put down in front of the door. And then it also was able to detect when I picked the boxes up here. So if I tap on the other event, you can see me walking off with the box. What it didn't get, though, was when I delivered a second box on top of the one that was already there. So the boxes have to be box-shaped and put down on their own, not on top of each other. I don't know about you, but I found that generally my delivery guys kind of stack the boxes on top of each other as they get delivered. Although if somebody walks off with all the boxes, the picked up thing here should work. And you can go through throughout the day every time one of these events occurred. And by and large, if you stick to the package kind of looking like this when it gets delivered, it does pick it up every time. Now you can also browse through prior events, and to do that, you just go back to the main screen here and tap on Events in the lower corner. And what it will do here, in my case, is show me any time it recorded a person walking in front of the camera. And you'll also notice here, if I click on this one, that it recognized me from my face. And that's because I gave it a copy of my face. And so it does give you the people that you might know coming to the door. So as you can see here, I called my face Lon, and it says Lon was here, delivered a package, and I also detected a human. So it will allow you to load in 10 faces that are familiar to you, so you can maybe do some filtering based on familiar faces there. And you can browse through all of these events. It will store these until it runs out of space, and then it gets rid of the older ones. But if you wanted to save an event, you just load it up here and tap on download, and that will put it onto your device so you can get it off the camera. So let's take a look at the camera settings now. I'm not going to bore you with everything, but just the things that I think are of interest here. So what you do to get into the settings is you click the little periods here and then tap on the gear off the home screen. This option here for home-based connection is for that in-home server that Eufy sells. I actually have one of them. Maybe at some point we'll do a follow-up video as to how that works, but for now we'll look at that another time. Motion detection will allow you to determine the rules for which the camera will notify you and do recordings. As I mentioned, I've been relying on its AI to detect humans, and as far as I know, it's picked up every person that's walked in front of it so far. It's been very good at that. But if you don't want to trust the AI, you can select all motions here, and that will rely on a more traditional motion detection that most of these doorbells rely upon. You can adjust the sensitivity of those motion detections down here, and then you can also set up an activity zone in which the camera should be looking. So if I pull this up here and hit the plus button, what I could do is say only pick up motion that happens within this zone and ignore everything else. So you do have some ability to reduce the number of false alarms that you might get. But again, the detection here has been working very, very well with the human detection, which is what I am after here. Power Manager is also important to play with, and this is a great way to figure out what your battery is going to do for you over the long term. So as I mentioned, I've had this working now for the better part of a week. I still have 89% in the tank, and it's telling me how many working days and events and recorded events it has had. I don't know why it says 48 working days because I haven't been using it that long, but perhaps they used it at the factory or something before that. But if you look down here under working mode, I have it right now at optimal surveillance, which means that it will record a 1-minute clip, and then it will start recording again right after that if it's still detecting activity in front of it. But they have other modes here to better balance out the battery life if you're finding that you need to swap out the battery more frequently. But right now, for me, I think I'm going to be okay with that optimal surveillance feature given what I anticipate the activity at that door to be. I've used it a little bit more over the last week because I've been testing it, but I think once we're settled into its normal usage pattern, we shouldn't see all that much activity there. This next feature is called Delivery Guard. This is the one that looks for the packages that get placed in front of the door. And as I mentioned, there are some limitations to its effectiveness. They also have another mode here called Package Guarding. so that when it knows there's a package there and somebody walks up to the doorbell will automatically turn on with a light and can play a recording to maybe spook the porch pirates off your porch if there happens to be a package there. I'm not sure how effective that's going to be. It might come on every time somebody walks up to the door, but you can turn it on if you want. You can also set up an alert to let you know that a package has been sitting for too long as well. So they've got a bunch of stuff here for enabling this package monitoring if that's a problem in your area. Familiar Faces is that feature I talked about before where you can upload photos of people that are familiar to you so you can see when those people come or go. It will also put in here newly detected faces that it hasn't seen before, and you can assign names to them as well. This one I won't show you at the moment because it's the pest control guy who had stopped by a little bit earlier. Now, if you want to make some of your own pre-recorded responses for the doorbell, you can go ahead here and record whatever you want to have played back through the doorbell with your own voice. That's a pretty neat feature. Indoor chime is just setting up those indoor chimes like we mentioned before. Your video settings are in here, and this is where you can set the night vision modes. So you do have some of those options that we discussed earlier at your fingertips. You also have your audio settings in here. And that is pretty much it, I think, for the main feature set. It is a fairly simple device to operate here. You can, of course, tweak the notifications a bit more if you need to, but by and large, you don't have to think about it too much. It's a pretty solid product, and I found so far this to be my favorite doorbell out of all the ones that I have looked at in this class of device that works wirelessly without having to pay a subscription. It's really, really good. So much so I may get another one at some point from my other door and replace the Wise one that's currently there. So altogether, I am a big fan of this Eufy product. Remember, it does need to connect to your Wi-Fi, so you have to make sure you've got a somewhat decent Wi-Fi signal on your front door for this to work. That's typical with most of these security cameras that are in this class of product. But if you are looking for something simple and you don't want to have an ongoing cost of ownership, I think this Eufy thing might be worth checking out. That's going to do it for this one. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.